On this episode, we'll discuss faith, technology, and the future of ministry. Well, hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast, the show that is dedicated to inspiring leaders and empowering healthy churches. I'm Kendall Connor, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jess Moore. How are you today, Jess?
Good morning, Kendall. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be on here for a podcast today. We rarely record on a Monday, I will
It's
say.
true.
So
Yes, Monday morning.
yes, this is kind of new for us, but I don't know. Maybe this is a new rhythm. It kind of got me up
Yeah.
and ready this morning.
Yeah, Same. Same extra coffee poured.
Extra
We're ready to
coffee.
go.
Yeah, double caffeinated for sure.
Yep.
I want to tell you about something that's kind of interesting that goes with this episode this week. So I don't think I've shared this on the show, and I don't even know that I've told you about this. I have recently started a master's program, a program to get my master's degree, and I am taking a class right now. I just thought it was really funny this week. It's like on organizational leadership or something like that.
Yeah.
And I took a questionnaire, one of the assessments this week, and
Yeah.
one of the qualities that it described in my leadership style was being futuristic. And I
Oh,
just I just
interesting.
I thought that was just one of them. I thought that was amazing. I was like, I can't believe that this is I was like, am I this way? I don't know. It was like 250
Yeah, what an
questions going through
interesting
this
thing.
thing. But
Define futuristic. What does that even mean?
so
Like like
ac-
robots?
so according to probably not, maybe, who knows. One of the things it was, always looking ahead, always thinking about what's
Oh, yeah.
coming next and
Okay.
those kind of things. And I
Totally.
was like,
I feel
oh,
like I would call that a planner, but
yeah,
futuristic is
maybe so.
cooler.
I think maybe I'll keep the label. I like that.
Yeah, totally. That's great.
I thought that was really cool. And then I also thought, man, going into this episode today, we get to talk with somebody who is also a forward thinker, is also thinking
Mhm.
about what's coming in the future, is passionate about technology. And so I'm excited about this guest that we've got joining us today.
Me too. Me too.
So we get to have someone very special joining us today, and that is Daniel Hall. And for all of our listeners out there today, if you have not connected with him before, let me tell you a little bit about him. Let me jump to his bio and share a little bit of that. He is a creative technologist, which that sounds even better than saying futuristic. Like I've got to get that in
Yeah.
my bio.
Yep.
But a creative technologist and digital ministry strategist based in Chattanooga, Tennessee. He's a former worship pastor turned product builder, and he spent the last 15 years, and what he says is at the intersection of digital marketing, technology, and mission.
Cool.
Yeah, he says that he's built ministry tools that are used by some of the largest evangelistic organizations in the world. No big deal. And then he also is, he went on to lead digital programs at One Hope, where his team there would use
Hmm.
the
That's
internet,
awesome.
would use apps and emerging technologies to reach children and youth with God's word across the globe. I mean,
Cool.
absolutely amazing. So today, Daniel, he consults with churches and ministries on things like AI and strategy, creative direction, digital innovation. All of these things really just helping the church to be ready for what is next, looking towards the future. But he's really passionate about churches, about ministries, and helping leaders. And so I'm excited to jump into this conversation today.
Let's do it. This is going to be great.
This is going to be a fun one. So, as we talk about faith and technology and the future of ministry, I just want to remind all of our people who are at home, be sure to hit that follow button because we want to continue to be able to have great conversations like this. And we do not want you to miss anything. We want to get you subscribed so that you
Mm.
stay in the loop. And so be sure to do that wherever you're enjoying our show. But without further ado, let's welcome Daniel Hall to the show. How are you, Daniel?
Hey guys, I'm good. I'm good. It's good to be here.
I feel like
Glad
you
you're
had a lot
here.
of buzzwords in your bio there. I've got to get some of those, man.
There's so many hype cycles. I just want to join any and all of the hype that I can. So,
No, those are real needs, though. Like digital
Yes.
strategy for churches is something that, like, if I were a church leader, I'd be like, I need that. I need help there. That's hard. It's
yeah,
been such a quick adjustment culturally.
yeah, and honestly, like it's fun to be a part of conversations like this because when you get to hear or engage with your bio, it's humbling, right? So like to hear that read back is yeah, it's humbling to say that like, yeah, this has been so fun to be a part of all these technological advancements and this moment, like this AI moment we're in
Yeah.
with ministry. What an honor to be on the
Mhm.
front
Yeah.
lines with this stuff. So
I love that, and I know that we read the public bio, but I'm just kinda curious, I mean, all the things that were said there, is there anything that we missed? Is there something maybe that your family and your friends would know about you that we missed?
well, if you're watching this, sorry, listeners, but if you're watching this behind me, sometimes on Zoom calls, since I've lived my whole life on Zoom the last 5 years,
Mhm.
they're like, "Is that real back there?" And these are real guitars. They're beautiful behind me. That's a part of the tools of the trade of that worship pastor life that
Mm.
was a few chapters ago. But yes, they're real, they're beautiful. But like I always kind of joke, I really don't deserve them because they I have to dust them off occasionally. That's the most interaction they
Mm.
probably get these days. But guitar fans typically are like, "Hey, let's talk about what's the Jaguar back there? I noticed." Or so for any Les Paul fans,
I'm glad that you're dropping the names because I 100% do not know.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So that's that. So that's kind of the fun little extra piece there is I've got these beautiful guitars that I don't really deserve, but
that's
Well,
awesome.
if it's all the same to you, Daniel, next time maybe we'll have to get you on the show again. You can just, break out the guitar and, just like you can lead with that as we jump into our
Yeah.
conversation.
Give us a
it'd be a
little
lot of
intro song.
90s be a lot of 90s youth stuff you'd be familiar with. Like Every Move I Make, remember
Yeah.
the classics?
Yes, I
Yeah,
know
we'd
all
Hey,
the
I'm
probably
here
bust
for
out
it.
some of
motions.
those. Just in G,
Yes.
just some simple, yeah.
Yeah. They literally all sounded it was all the same chords, just
It was all the same.
different rhythms. Yeah, it's
You
great.
may be right on time for that. Our student ministry at our church did a 90s worship night, which I can't
Oh,
believe
that's
that
Listen, I
great.
they're
bet the Holy
throwing back
Spirit
to
showed
this.
up because it was better. It was
Oh, yeah.
better back then.
Oh, yeah.
Simpler.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, Daniel, we also mentioned that you mentioned something your family and friends would know about you, but I think it's fair to say too that we've had a member of your family on our show before. Is that you
Yeah,
want to
that's
give
a
her a
fun
little shout
fact.
out?
Yeah, Holly Tate, who's been a frequent guest of the podcast. She's my little sister. I like to say that there comes a point when you're young, it's obvious who's older. Well, we were doing
Yeah.
some consulting with international ministries overseas a few years ago, and they asked us, "Hey, who's older?" And I was like, "This is my moment, you guys, because
Yeah.
they can't tell." So she's my little sister, and I couldn't be a prouder big brother watching her just yeah, lead in business and in ministry, and she's yeah, just a super proud big brother.
It's amazing. And yeah,
And
and
we get
for
to do a
any
lot of work together, actually. So that's so fun that this is
That is
yeah, we get
really
to work
fun.
together.
That's awesome. For any of our listeners who haven't checked out those episodes, they're definitely worth going to check out. She was
Mhm.
on our podcast not too long ago, so
That's
yeah,
right.
look up Holly Tate's episode for sure. Well,
She's a
Daniel,
fun human too.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that you've had kind of a unique journey, Daniel, from you mentioned the being a worship pastor to working in digital ministry, global ministry. Can you walk us through your story a little bit?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, I actually another quick little fun fact on that will kick off my story is I was a Starbucks barista for a season.
Mm. Sames.
And yes, awesome. Well, we could nerd out about that later. We'll talk Green Apron, Black Apron,
It's been a
partner
while.
numbers.
Yeah.
Um, but what's so fun about that is I actually met my wife. She was one of my customers. I met her through the drive-through window. So
Wow,
that's
that's
like a
awesome.
fun. We could do a whole conversation about
So
I call
cute.
it beauty in the barista is what I kind of
Oh,
call
how
our
about
story.
drive-through love story? That would be good too.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We got multiples. But yeah, so I was pulled out of the barista life by a church planner. And he's like, "Hey, I heard you have led worship through college and stuff, and I'd love to invite you to be a part of this." So that kicked off my years as being on church staff, where
Yeah.
I cut my teeth on a Stadia church. So shout out to Stadia. Church planning network, and loved that time getting to serve in the local church, leading a team of creatives and musicians, and then also because full time ministry is not enough, want as well be bivocational. I started
Mhm.
working for a tech startup here in town, and so while I was serving in the local church, I was also cutting my teeth in building SaaS products, software as a service
Mhm.
products. So we built a learning management system, and really our flagship was a product that was like a shared inbox for digital ministries,
Very cool.
specifically digital missionaries. So to this day, it's the communication platform used by Billy Graham and Need
Wow.
Him and many online evangelism ministries that you haven't heard of on purpose, doing incredible, really the front lines in the trenches, digital
Wow.
mission work
Very cool.
all over the world. And so that was a blast getting to serve some of the yes, again, on the front lines and doing cutting
So
edge
fun.
ministry. Um, and then in
Cool.
which One Hope was one of those.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, and so when it was time for another chapter to begin, I connected with the One Hope folks, and then it was funny because I was like, I think for profit, even though it's for the mission, for profit life is where I'm at. And then I made that jump to nonprofit, you know, parachurch, and a
Yeah,
whole new
yeah,
adventure began.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
But
That's
got to
awesome.
serve there as like you read earlier, as director of digital programs. And the I have all these jokes, right? But the joke there is like, I'm not exactly, I think I know what one of the words in my title really meant. But like director of digital program development. So really the fun way to say it was we thought creatively about using the internet to get God's word to
Mm,
kids.
cool.
And
Amazing.
yeah, that we survived many a hype cycle. So like if you remember NFTs, we were putting out NFTs and trying to figure
Yes.
that out. And
Yeah.
we're walking
Yeah,
around VR church campuses, exploring what
I
was possible in
Oh
VR
my
during that
gosh.
hype cycle.
wow,
But
wow. Yeah, and yeah, that was my first question was, okay, what did that look like practically? But yeah, I love those examples because it's so
yeah,
creative,
That's
well,
wild.
and so like making, I'm trying. Let's see, like if I could rattle off like digital comic books was one that we played a lot with because
Wow.
comic books and anime are so big all over the
Yeah,
Right.
world. So what does it look like to like now how do you put scripture into comic books well and add in that local or regional at least
yeah.
context into that for young people? So just all kinds of creative fun,
So
incredible
basically you were
team.
making like Jesus video games. Not Jesus.
Worked with so I'm glad you
That feels
said that because
sacrilegious.
no, not at all, not at all. That's actually right in the wheelhouse for a lot of our One Hope
So
work.
fun.
We partnered with YouVersion, the
Mhm.
Bible app, right? And all of our
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Bibles on our phone, to build out a Bible app for kids. Which, if you have a young one, the Bible app for kids is an incredible
Yes, it is.
product, incredible experience for kids to engage with God's word. Um, and maybe I don't know. This is it's being revamped, and there's gonna be a whole new version coming soon. I don't know how public that is.
Ooh.
So for you listeners,
Got the
Teaser.
exclusive behind the
you get
scenes.
Yeah.
some behind the scenes there, but the team's working hard to think of how to engage even in new and interesting ways for kids. And so I'm
Yeah,
excited about the future of that. It was a blast to work with them. And another way that you might be familiar is in the Bible app itself. Kind of have to scroll down a little bit by default, but there's something called the Kids Bible Experience for
mm,
like tweens, like
Yeah.
the
yes,
10
yeah,
and up kind of age to kind of the question there was like in this world of TikTok and short clips of
Right.
video, how do we engage young people with the word? And
Hmm.
so I would encourage you to go check that out. That I'm super close to the team that puts that together as well. It's a collaboration between YouVersion and One Hope, and they're doing again more just incredible work with the local church,
Yeah.
going to young
yeah,
leaders in local churches and partnering with them to become content creators. And so, yeah, I can't speak highly enough for the One Hope team and my
yeah,
friends there, just
yeah, that's
doing
very
awesome stuff.
cool. Well, and I wanna hear your perspective on this. All these different avenues that you've used technology to get the word out in creative ways. I'd love to hear from your perspective on how receptive, were people to these things? Like, do
It's
you
a
feel
good
like the
question.
technology really, open the door with those. But I'll first tell you this while you're kind of thinking of an answer on that. You mentioned in the Bible app that, when you scroll down, that there are those videos for kind of the older kids that, that have like the influencer style. And I've used that with my own kids. So
Mm,
I
Awesome.
can say, like, we're always looking for kind of creative ways to, in the mornings, just to, bring something spiritual to their morning. And I've 100%, I had to think about it a second, but I was like, yeah, we've tried
Yeah.
that with, I've got 3 boys, and we 100% have checked those out. So that's very, very cool. And so from somebody who has experienced that, and used it in my own family, that is amazing. And,
I need
we
to
were
check that
definitely
out.
receptive.
My kids are both
Yeah.
super active on the Bible app with friends and like socially and doing their quiet time. They do Bible recap and the
Oh,
combination
Bible
of the
recap's great.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great. That would be a fun guest. Tara Lee Cobble would be so fun. She's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna add that to the
So
list. Yeah.
the kids love that, and they may have seen those videos, but I'm curious about them, so I'm gonna go check those out after we're done.
Yeah. It's a really great, I'd say it's a really great, I use the word product a lot. It's a really great
Yeah,
offering for after that Bible app for kids season.
yeah,
Mhm.
And then before probably jumping into the just Bible reading plans that may be
yeah,
with some of the teachers that you're more used to. It's that
Yes.
right,
really that sweet spot between I'm
Yes.
too old for that. That's for little kids,
right.
and like the older kids, some of the just more direct scripture involvement. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
it's
Yeah,
That's
that's very cool.
awesome.
So how do you feel like the people that and the experiences you've seen, are people generally receptive to these, new avenues for getting the word out?
yeah. So it's really fascinating, Kendall, because when you North America was one of 7 regions in the world. So at a global scale, the challenge is that everything changes with every people group, with every
Mm,
region of the world.
yeah.
But it all boils down to a few very simple things. It's like it's crazy how you can layer all these layers of technology. You can take the latest hype cycle like we've been kind of joking around about, but
Yeah.
it all comes down to a few very simple, foundational, timeless things. And that is who this is the digital marketing piece.
Mhm,
Who is this for?
mhm.
What value does it bring? Or what problem am I solving?
Yeah.
And then there's this kind of like third, I think those are the kind of 2 that I always ask for any project. But the third one is kind of like, why should they care? Or like, am I
Yeah.
meeting them where they
Yeah.
are?
Right.
So it's so different everywhere you go. So receptivity is part of the question mark on at the very beginning of
Yeah.
every project. Like, how
Mhm.
do we meet people? That's why the word context is thrown around a lot too. Like,
Mm, yeah.
what's this young person's context? What are they what's their reality? What are they wrestling with? What are their challenges? What do they delight in? Like, what are they
Yeah.
most interested in? That's
Yeah.
why I love digital marketing, lots of digital ministry, digital marketing. Digital marketing is so fascinating to me because we've not been able to, reach people the way we can now and measure their, like, motivation, to
Yeah.
measure, like, the changes and the choices that we've made in such a way that we can iterate on that and then reach them even better with every
Mm.
attempt.
Yeah.
And this is
That's
not
a
new.
yeah, that's a refreshing perspective though, because obviously Kendall and I are both in marketing in a similar space, right? And it is different. It is for profit. So that is a refreshing perspective because it can become tiring
Mm,
to constantly be innovative and constantly be relevant and constantly be effective. And
Yeah.
so that's a good reminder that we've never been able to track this level of engagement, this level of success, impact. That's very true.
Right.
yeah,
Well,
it's all the same tools, which is
yeah.
what's so interesting too, is it's all the same tools to nurture a lead and try to, like, gain a new sale as it is
Mm,
to nurture or I would say steward an
yeah.
opportunity to,
Right.
like, when we call them a seeker, when someone is seeking or engaging with, a program or product that we build,
Mhm.
to nurture that opportunity, to nurture that relationship or even a
Yeah.
conversation if we can get that far.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
this is the part that some people it gets their skin crawling, but, like, it's not a sales
Right.
conversion, but
Right.
to nurture that towards something where, we can do our part, the technology does its part, but to help God, to help them engage with the word so
Yeah.
it can do its
Yes.
part, and that the Holy Spirit is doing its part in
Right.
this magical, mysterious soup of ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, and,
good.
and I mentioned at the top of the episode, the I'm currently in that master's program for grad school, so going and trying to get my degree in a marketing related program. However, my undergrad is in church leadership, and the thing that I've been passionate about in this whole journey is being able to merge those two things
Yeah.
because it's a
Yeah.
it's a unique makeup that is Kindle, right? And so,
Mm.
being able to use those methods, just as you've said, for the kingdom is something that
Yeah.
I'm super passionate about. And so, even as we're talking about these various tools and just trying something different, I think about the church leaders on the other side of this that are listening to this today. And the thing that I just keep sitting here running through my head is like just being willing to try new things for the sake of the
Yeah.
gospel, for the sake of reaching that community, of reaching people in your unique context is something that I think that all of us should be considering. All of us should be kind
Mm.
of, trying new things and just trying to keep things fresh, while keeping the timeless things
Yeah.
the same, right?
Mm.
But the new
Yeah.
methods of reaching people and spreading that message will
Mm.
always be changing, right? We didn't have TikTok, so even 10 years ago, right? Or we didn't have these different methods and these different tools. The tools are always going to change. The methods are always going to change. But, I love just being willing, kinda having that heart posture of, yeah, whatever it takes to get would you say,
Mm.
NFTs a few years ago, like the comic books, like whatever it may be, to get
Mm.
the word out, I think, that's what's important.
That's
God
right.
knew the time in history where we would all be born, and I feel like our giftings align with the season that we were put in,
Yeah,
and I think, yeah, you're exactly right, Kendall. What a unique opportunity during the season that we're in to be able to kind of flex those skills to glorify the kingdom and just say,
yeah,
like, what options do we have available? The options are new and awesome and
right.
intimidating sometimes, right? But hey, you were born to do this right now. So do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's become a huge passion of mine, guys. Like, I love that the title of your podcast is church leadership. You could have stopped there, but you have labs. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
yeah,
I love a good lab. Like, because a lab insinuates that like we're gonna mix some things together and it's gonna get
Yeah.
stinky. Maybe it'll get as exciting as it's gonna like
Yeah.
blow up. You might get a
Yeah.
little hurt. You might get injured in this lab. And I think a lot of people would be like, church leadership, yeah, yeah, I got lots of scars.
Yeah.
yeah.
But but honestly, like, what it keeps it interesting, and
Yeah,
again, to your point, like, to be able to leverage these opportunities God's giving us through new
Mm.
technologies and new frameworks, through
yes,
shifting culture. Like, if it was always the same and this was just, like, copy paste,
Yeah.
like, yes, Lord, send me, here am I, but, like, might actually be kinda boring too. I mean, maybe
yeah,
that's, I don't know. Please don't, come at me for, following God's call is never boring. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is, like,
yeah,
I love the fact that you're encouraging, and this is a passion of mine, is to encourage church leaders to try new things. We talk about
Mhm.
new wineskins is right after that, right? We have to think of
Mm.
new frameworks and new
right.
possibilities for the new wine,
Yeah.
Yes,
and I love that. And so anything I can do to encourage leaders, and there's some real practical ways we could get into, and actually that's my final chapter. If I can go back, my final chapter of my story so far, hopefully it's not my final chapter, that was, maybe that got dark.
So far.
The chapter so far is that, like, now I'm getting to work with, in a more of a consulting capacity with
Mhm.
churches, and do some contract work with all kinds of random projects, and
yeah,
ministries, and then also getting to build some of my own, like, product ideas I've had for a while in
yeah,
this sort of this AI moment. It's so much easier to build things now that we
Mm.
can we can design a prototype, in a conversation. And the time of a
Right.
conversation, an
yeah.
idea starts, we can build that out even in a prototype.
Crazy.
So
Mhm.
so yeah,
Abs
anyway.
It's a
Loving
absolutely
it.
amazing it's an amazing time, and you're right, I mean, the things are moving at such a fast pace. It gets me kinda curious, like, when you think about the future of ministry, you know, what would you say are some of the biggest shifts that church leaders, ministry leaders need to be paying attention to right now?
Well, yeah. So again, it's funny. I think sometimes it sounds like I'm just saying things that would have been true 100 years ago too. But which is one. I just encourage ministry leaders to push through fear and
Yeah.
find faith again. Like
Mm,
Wow.
faith over fear. I at the
Yeah.
top of my whiteboard, I don't think you can see it, but and I just looked. I've actually erased it because I was working on a different project. But trust God has become a theme in this season. Trust God,
Mm,
mm,
and I think that goes for whether you're in a time of transition, whether you're going through other difficult like family or relationship stuff.
yeah.
Um, but even through a technological moment like this AI
yeah,
thing, we talk
yeah,
about some of the heavier stuff with it, like what will jobs be like and all this stuff.
mm,
Um, to be honest, I'm most concerned about how our church leaders can be uh, can be ready to steward the people that are coming into their church. Like, where do
Wow.
people go in moments of crisis? Where do people go
yeah,
when they're
Mm,
scared? They still, even through all time, they still come to the church. Like if they
mm,
find out you're a pastor or a leader in a church, they're going to ask you the big questions. And what an opportunity. Again, it's
yeah.
about stewardship. To
yeah,
steward the opportunity to meet people in their anxiety, to meet people in their
mm,
fear of this moment,
It's
asking big
good.
questions. So that's why I think as leaders, we don't really have the option to not engage. That was a weird
mhm,
double negative, I think. Basically,
yeah,
like we are called to engage
Yeah.
in every cultural
Right.
moment. I think it was
mhm,
Mhm.
Pastor John Tyson I heard coming out of COVID. He was sharing some thoughts about the churches, the shutdown moment we had as churches and coming when do you open up and all this stuff. And he said a
Yeah.
phrase that has stuck with me for these years, which is like, don't miss a crisis.
Mhm.
mm,
Like we don't miss a crisis as an opportunity to
Right.
engage with your people where they are. And so
Wow.
yeah,
I think th- just because AI is the latest thing and it's not just a hype cycle like that we joke about NFTs and VR still around, but it's way on the back burner
mhm,
of conversation. AI has already changed the world in a way
right,
that's
Yeah.
not the toothpaste isn't going back in the tube for better
Yeah.
right,
and for worse, right? But we have to be engaging in it in a way that that we can lead people in the moments of fear with the faith, with trusting God. Um,
Wow.
so yeah,
That's
I
good.
don't know if that directly answers the question, but
No,
to
it
me,
does.
that's probably the most important thing for church leaders right now is to admit that we don't have all the answers, but to know that
mm,
God is good and that He's in control,
yeah,
and didn't surprise Him.
right,
Wow. It's really
So
good
good.
reminder.
I love one of the things that I can really appreciate, Daniel, is that, you shared that ministry leaders should approach this thing, not out of fear, but really just be leaning in. I think maybe that's the message I'm taking from this is
Yeah,
when the things are changing around us, it's not the time to, withdraw. It's the time to press in, to see what these
yeah,
new technologies and new things can help us. And, we've talked about earlier in the episode, engaging in these things and trying new things. But it's interesting that you bring up the word fear because I think a lot of times that's our can be our initial reaction to when new things come out, right? Is, that fear of what is this going to do? What is it going to look like? Daniel, I know kind of on the flip side of, the fear side of it, there's also the
mm,
side of a lot of leaders, they feel pressure to keep up with everything, every new platform, every new tool or trend. And I'd love to hear from you on your perspective on how churches can discern what is actually going to be useful for their mission versus, what's just going to be noise and add craziness to the mix.
Yeah, yeah, there's a ton of noise, you guys. And, if you Google one thing or, like, use ChatGPT to look up one thing, man, it's just like you break a dam and that water is just gonna flood over
Yeah.
your head.
it's true,
Yeah.
it's true.
So, I mean, honestly, I think that for every leader's appetite, there is a wealth of call it education, resources,
Sure.
whatever, to explore. Again, we can't ignore or this is not a can we can kick down the road.
Yeah.
Right.
So I just encourage to start somewhere, engaging with it. So whether that's using, I think we're maybe beyond the time where people have started using ChatGPT or Claude as like a Google replacement, but
Right.
using it as like a thought partner is like the most low barrier sort of way to start, and just to like experience it so that you can
Yeah.
understand when someone comes and expresses something that feels like super wacky and scary to you as a leader, like some type of a a person may feel like a genuine relationship, whether that's friendship or otherwise, is starting to develop with with something like
Yeah.
this. We can laugh
Yeah.
about that, but it's something that like the world is already wrestling with things like this,
Yes.
Yeah.
and so we just
Right.
can't be naive to it.
Yeah.
But we can't choose ignorance. We have to engage. Um, on a more
Wow.
practical sense, I I I think I would also encourage to, well, look, you have whether you're a small church, a medium-sized church, or a large church, there are people in your church that are already playing with this from using it daily in their work to experimenting with building out agents that do automated work while they
Yeah.
sleep
Mhm.
at
Sure.
night, right? You've got a whole
Sure.
spectrum. What an opportunity to engage with the people God has brought to you in your community and go to them asking them like, "I wanna understand how you are engaging with this technology. I wanna understand." And I would even encourage you to go to the younger people, go to high
Yeah.
schoolers, college students, uh, probably sweet spot would be, like, probably between 20 and 25 years old
Yeah.
Mhm.
to ask them, like, "How are you using this, and what ways do
Mm.
you think here are our church's goals, here are our ministry's goals.
Yeah.
How can we be leveraging this stuff? Like, you teach me. You
Yeah.
Yeah.
show me." And even I think this is like the labs part, right?
Mm.
Is another big passion of mine. Churches and ministries should be allocating not just money, but time
Mhm.
and all the ways you could define resources to exploring these things. Get in the lab.
Yeah.
Get that stuff, get experimentation out of the margin and
Yeah.
onto like have there be a line item. I
Mm.
just imagine
Yes.
what kind of opportunities would emerge that you can't even imagine yet if you founded. Let's
Yes.
pretend. Let's do the digital marketing. Let's build a quick persona. Let's grab 23-year-old Aiden
Right.
and give him. He's dabbling in AI stuff. Find him. Say you have 90 days with $500 budget. I want to see what you can help me achieve. What kind of crazy stuff you can't fail, but we're going to check in every 2 weeks for 90 days, and let's see what we can't do with whatever's interesting to you. Whether that's
Yeah.
building out a new influencer model for our church to get young people to come to our college night or
Right. Right.
whatever. Like, just imagine if that was something that, or grab a handful of these young leaders, and to assign budget and to assign like one or two very simple goals around a designated time box.
Right.
Uh, could you imagine how committed and what an opportunity
Yes.
for
Well,
growing leadership with that young people?
I think about it like this. I think of all the current technology that's available, and there's AI, of course, but there's a million other things, right? I think of the creative elements, such as, how much graphic design has changed just in the past
Mm.
5, 10 years.
Yeah.
From
Yeah.
it used to just be Adobe, and now there's Canva, and now there's tools that you can describe that way, and there's video and all these different elements. There all these new tools that are available. Influence. We talk about being an influencer and having those things. Those are things that didn't exist
Yeah.
only a few years ago. There's all these new things that have come around. I think back to, so many years ago when I first was getting into church as a teenager. At the time, having a screen in your church was a big deal. That was the
Mm.
latest and greatest, right?
Yeah.
That's
Having
right.
having a website was new and exciting and innovative. And in that season, as a young person, ministry leaders poured in me the same way that you're describing and said like,
Yeah.
"Hey, can you help us with this? We'd love to do
Mhm.
something. Well, what would it look like if we did try something like this?" And as a young person, I can tell you that it made me want to keep showing up. And
Mhm.
I've written whole blog articles and things like that in the past about how church media and how church technology played an impact in saving my life because I was able to
Yeah.
get involved. There's going to
Yeah.
be people that are in your community right now that are looking to get engaged with something like this. They're looking
Mhm.
to use the gifts and talents and things that God's put inside them for something fresh for 2026 and beyond, right? And so, yeah, maybe it's not like the church tech booth, how it was for me, or the church website. Maybe it's something that's new and fresh, and something that probably I'm even drawing a blank coming up of what it might be. They're gonna
Well,
code some new app. They're gonna do
yeah.
something that can
Yeah.
help in this moment, right?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Go for that 20, I don't know, I don't remember what you said, 26-year-old Aiden. Because if you're
Yeah,
gonna go to, like, me or my husband, like, the 40-year-olds, we are using ChatGPT for, like, companion planting and macro ideas for meals, so it's gonna be a different experience. Find the right people that can do, like, the really cool stuff because 'cause they're there, and you're absolutely right. Again, going back to gifts. This is the gift for this season that you're in. How
Mm,
can you use
yeah,
that to impact the kingdom?
yep. So totally. And young people they're in it, they're native to it. And so
hmm
Mhm.
they won't even
it's good.
skip a beat. And they probably already have ideas as to things that
Yeah.
they wish that they could do differently and with more relevance to this next generation. And um, yeah, 100%. Same story, Kindle. It just took a few I actually was reflecting with some friends that I grew up in youth group with this recently, this last weekend, and it was like just a few normal people, youth volunteers that
Yeah,
believed in us in a way that they like gave us ownership,
that's right.
whether that was through the worship band to like, yeah, we're gonna allow you guys to choose your own songs and to like
Right,
lead in that moment
right.
instead of bringing in an outside or older volunteers or whatever it is to manage the social media with oversight. Let's not, whatever,
Yeah.
but
Right,
like
Yeah.
right.
clear goals, clear boundaries, but like let them run and just
Yeah.
Yeah.
could you imagine? Yeah.
So cool.
The thing that is most refreshing to me about that and that I figured it out because it's very easy as a ministry leader to keep a tight grip to have all the control over something. But when you can trust someone enough and let go enough to really let them be creative and let them try things, especially even when it's something new, they're going to surprise you at
Oh,
just
yeah.
at the things that they can come up with that are going to be far
Mm.
beyond. And I'm just thinking with all of these tools and all of the way that you can create so many different things and so quickly now. I just think as ministry leaders, if we can invest in others and get others involved, man, I think we're really going to be surprised at the creativity that can come towards, building the kingdom with this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What would you say, Daniel, to a ministry leader that feels discouraged by all of this today? Maybe they just feel like, man, we're way too
Mhm.
behind. I can't think about this new stuff. What encouragement would you offer them today?
Yeah, probably that you're not as behind as you think.
hmm
So congratulations. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Because it already means that you're in the lab. You're already here,
Yeah.
Mm.
right? You're hanging out with Kendall and Jess, and you're thinking, you're curious. So,
Love it.
well done. You're listening to this, and honestly, you're not as behind as you think. The news, Silicon Valley is a very loud, rich, wealthy bubble that
Yeah.
is freaking out right now and thinks the whole world should be freaking out. A lot of blue collar, average person day to day is not feeling super disrupted right now. And so, like,
Mhm.
Mm,
if you're buying that hype, then it's really you just got to hear both sides of like
yeah.
the Chicken Littles and the like nothing is happening, and you have to kind of navigate the in between.
yeah.
Mm.
So you're not as behind as you think, and you don't have to be like Kindle, you and I, such futurists that are so
Yes,
futuristic.
futuristics. Yes.
You don't have to be, but I think we've talked about uh, placing, we use this word at One Hope, entrustment,
Mm.
entrusting
Mm.
young people to help you curate technology for use at church, inviting
Wow.
young people to the table, not just to go manage the social media, but like invite them to the strategy meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine to have,
Yeah.
again, and we're inviting Aiden to the strategy table.
That's right.
Right.
Um, I love how that could be so upside down for certain churches,
Mm.
but
Mm.
what life that would breathe into their strategy. Um,
Yes.
and then, yeah, I don't know. I think you're here. I think you're curious. If you weren't curious, I would say that would be the biggest problem. It's those who aren't
Right.
curious
Yeah.
that are going to be left behind. Um, yeah, and honestly, I can't be in a conversation with this without mentioning Bob Hoskins, the founder of One Hope.
Mm.
He's, gosh, now in his 80s. I think
Mm.
he's actually turning 90, I think, like, this year.
Wow.
And, he released a video message, last year about this AI moment and was like, "I firmly believe that AI is a gift to the church.
Wow.
Wow.
This moment is a gift, from God to ministries." And I was just so encouraged by,
Yeah.
an elder,
Yes.
in our church movements, um, saying such a thing, that I was just so encouraged by that. So,
Wow.
Mm.
um, I hope that, there's yeah, there's plenty of voices that are promoting, promoting anxiety-ridden versions of the future.
Right.
Mm.
Um, but I feel like we're, in a way, I hope it's an encouraging loop, but we're in a bit of a loop about, like, but that's a spirit of fear. We are given a spirit of
Yeah.
power, my friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
That's
if
good.
we are truly the people of the powerful creator of the universe, like, he's over AI. He's over
Mm.
Totally.
whatever next thing is coming that we
Yeah.
can't even, whatever next disruption is just gonna blow our minds. And none of it's surprising. God is on the throne.
Yeah.
I hope that you can seek out voices that, also promote hopeful, even optimistic. I mean, I try to seek both. I really
Yeah.
Yes.
do, to try to get a
Yes.
balanced, like, even emotionally balanced, but like technologically
Yeah.
balanced perspective. And that includes faith leaders. Um, yeah, I think that's important. So anyway, there's a few things
It's
in
really
there,
Perfect.
but
yeah, that's really good, Daniel, and, it does give me hope, I think I love that you said that there's a balance that comes with all technology, but, yeah, approaching it without that, with, the confidence that God's got this, right? And that, like, this is no surprise to God, I think is a
Mhm.
great heart posture to
Mhm.
go towards this and with any technology, so that's great. Um, one of the big themes of our show is healthy churches. We talk about healthy churches and healthy leaders. And, when it comes to all of this technology and things like that, I'm just kind of curious to hear from you. What would you say is an essential component of a healthy church today and in the future?
well, I'm glad you asked, because I have figured out how to be a healthy church. So listen up.
Not a complex
Someone
question at
figured it
all.
out.
Just a
I love it.
small, like, here we go. Here it is. Here's the equation. No,
Mm,
I think, as far as I'm concerned, as a creative technologist, is to just create a culture where it's a very short distance from an
mm.
idea to an experiment. And that
Wow.
doesn't mean
Ooh.
a fully fleshed
Wow.
out new program that's going to be 5-year plan.
Yeah.
It's really just a big idea to an experiment. May we have cultures that celebrate, failure, because that meant we tried something.
Mm.
That know that, I'll just pick a random number. There is no math equation, but that for every 10 failures, there's a massive success and a whole
Mm.
new
Mm.
strategy, a whole new way of thinking.
Wow.
So that we may just, yeah, that line, short distance between idea to experimentation.
It's good.
I think that's really healthy. I think that shows confidence. I think a confident leader can promote an idea that may fail. I think.
Mm.
Wow.
Um, so asking what if questions, staying curious. Yeah.
It's
Cool.
great stuff. Well, the way that we love to wrap up our conversations is with a kind of a final 5 rapid fire round. Are you up for the challenge?
All right, let's do it. I'm ready.
Okay. All right. This is when I
Awesome.
get to ask the questions. Okay. What's one book on this subject you'd recommend to church leaders?
Well, since this subject means a lot, we've been talking about fear a lot. I honestly, it's an author named Jamie Winship who put out a book called Living Fearless.
Mm.
And honestly, I think the book is good. It's not even his best work. I would encourage you to find some YouTube videos of Jamie kind of talking about the connected worldview versus the separation worldview,
Wow.
which is what his whole book
Okay.
is about.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna have to check
Okay.
I'll
that
leave it
out.
there.
Okay. What is the last thing you listened to on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you stream music?
So I am a big podcast listener, but let's go music because
Okay. Yes,
I came
please.
from the guitars, right? So I was an emo
Yes.
kid, came from some hardcore music background,
Yes.
so we could get into emo. But
Yeah.
there's an album I think that does not get enough love from the 2000s, and it's a band called Edison Glass, and the album is called Time Is Fiction.
Okay.
And don't let I just said the word hardcore. It's not a ton of screaming and stuff. Don't be
Yeah.
I
scared.
can remember this
It's
band. I'm gonna have to go. This
Yeah.
is a Spotify
My
listen
husband
right after
loves
this.
them. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
it is so good. And the story goes, I think that they were some youth pastors or they were in youth
Yeah.
ministry and they were like, what if we were a touring band? They put out
Yeah.
2 albums and then disappeared. I have no idea what happened to them.
All right.
But that
Well,
album, I'm just like, I come back to it. I'm like, this was so good.
Just
Man,
hits, man.
it
Love
does.
it. Okay. What's your favorite piece of technology or software right now? This will be a good one coming from you.
Well, you guys, this will be the moment. This is the like brain explosion here. So I've been playing with this thing, OpenClaw, that some people have probably, if you've been more nerdy, you've heard about this thing. But essentially, it's a local on your machine uh, agent. So like
yeah.
it's like a virtual assistant kind of agent thing. And I've used that. I've pushed it to a bit of the edge, and I've basically built out a creative agency that lives on my computer. I have 7 employees that are my
Stop.
staff, and we build out whatever idea comes to my mind. I start working with my chief of staff named Ransom, and he goes to the project lead, Ender, and we talk to our different,
What? This
yeah,
is wild.
it's a blast. I'm playing with that, yeah. So my favorite
So
tech, I think,
cool.
I would be the concept, this open claw, open source project.
Yeah.
It's a crazy time to be a nerd.
Yeah. I had
Yeah, in
not even
tech.
heard
So
of this. This is crazy.
My whole
it's
Instagram
wild.
feed
Whew.
is everything you just described. So Daniel, I hope you're contributing to the conversation there because I think people would love to hear about everything that you've created with that. So you got to
Well,
Whoa.
start telling the story a little bit on there on online.
yeah, and I'm working on a proposal for my wife actually leads a nonprofit here locally, and I wanna get a personal assistant, or I've heard some people call it a plus one, to get a plus one in the hands of every person on the team so that they can be
Wow.
feeding into like here
Mm,
we go, I'm going into the weeds. This is not rapid fire, but so if you wanna get nerdy, reach out. I'd love to
So
talk about
cool.
it, so.
that is
Awesome.
cool. Yeah. Okay. That's cool. Okay. What is one quote or advice that has stuck with you over the years?
Okay. So one that I've been wrestling with for a while, it's kind of it's in the Bible quote realm, but it's when Jesus is commissioning the disciples and he
Mm.
says, and I don't have it in front of me right now, unfortunately, but he says to be as basically commissions them to be as innocent as doves and as shrewd as vipers or as shrewd
Mm.
as snakes.
Hmm.
And I don't know, a few years ago, I read that, and it has just been like, "What are you talking about, Jesus?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
isn't the snake the bad guy? Aren't we, like,
Mm.
crushing the head of the snake? What does that mean to be as shrewd or, even some translations, as wise as vipers or as wise as
Right.
I don't know, vipers, as snakes,
Cunning, maybe? Yeah.
cunning. So you can go to different translations, and it's kinda like but I've just been exploring that, and I think the leadership sort of parallel to bring it into leadership is that like it's kind of some of what we've been talking about. I think the church is really good at being the innocent dove. I think we've
Yeah.
like for the most part in culture in relationships like the church
Mm,
is seen as that innocent. But I think it's the not being naive, being
Mm.
aware of what's in culture, the moment, being familiar
Wow.
and being able to navigate those things, which is the one take that I'm wrestling with still on this as
Wow.
shrewd
Yeah.
as snakes that I
Yeah.
really encourage ministry leaders to wrestle with. Like, what did he mean
Hmm.
when he said that? And that's it comes right after, I think, the famous, I'm sending you out as sheep among
Yeah.
wolves.
Right,
So
right,
like,
right.
man, that's a power packed area, but like, what did he mean by that? Doves and snakes. That's super interesting to me.
We're this makes me we gotta jump to Bible study right after this. I think
I
Let's
know.
this
go.
is good.
It's in
My
Matthew
first thought is
somewhere.
like go to Bible Project. I love Bible Project.
Yeah,
Big
yeah,
fan,
yeah.
big fan. Okay, one thing you'd like to communicate to our audience of church leaders.
You have permission to fail. And in fact, like, I'll use big words, biblical mandate. It's our biblical mandate to try
Mm,
things and to realize that, like, our dad, I'm getting emotional here, you guys. Our
mm,
dad is so proud of us, our Heavenly Father, and he just wants us to try
mm.
things, and he's gonna be proud of us even when we fall on our face.
It's good.
Mm,
So,
So good.
wow. Daniel, this conversation has been really encouraging. It's been thought
mm,
provoking, right? Like I'm
Mhm.
walking away with this wanting to try some different things, right? To push the edge of the what technology has to offer for the sake of the
amen.
gospel, right? To get the word out and to help more people to find hope. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your heart in all of this, and I really appreciate you spending time talking with us today. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, it's been a joy for me, man.
I
Absolutely.
I know that people are going to want to find out more from you, want to keep connected. What's the best way for them to get connected with you coming off of this episode?
Yeah, well, you can check out my website. It's halldaniel.com. I went last name, first name, so halldaniel.com. You can email me. It's me at halldaniel.com. Real clever. Email me at halldaniel.com. And I'd love to talk if you're a church out there that's wrestling with this stuff, AI strategy, creative direction. I would love to talk, ministry, whatever. And then if you want, this is again more like breaking. You can check out what my agents, my little company on a computer has been building. If you want to go to missionalimagination.com, it's
Wow.
very much a work in progress. But poke around that website, and the concept there is a little bit of my brain, and then a lot of robot
Wow.
work that's trying to take big ideas and put them through a kingdom
Yeah,
lens. So, yeah, a
Wow.
couple
cool.
different ways.
Very
So
But
cool.
fun.
either way,
Well,
I'd love to hear what you think about any of this stuff.
yeah. Well, I mean, this sounds great. And, for all of our listeners, we'll link everything up and make sure you can
Mhm.
get connected more with Daniel. But overall, this has just been a great conversation. I would say, once more, Daniel, thank you for talking with us. And, we're excited for all of this. It gets me excited for the future of
There we
ministry. I'll
go.
say it like that. For all of our listeners at home today, if this episode has encouraged you, if it's kind of stretched you a little bit, I would say, would you consider sharing this with a friend? Maybe even
Mhm.
leaving us a review, letting us know what you thought of it. This helps us to keep equipping leaders like you. And again, hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button wherever you're enjoying our show. Until next time, keep leading well, keep believing for great things in the future. We'll see you right back here next week on Church Leadership Lab.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.